Hello, my name is Rebecca Demmers, and I will be presenting my online portfolio project today. Um, I currently am a third through fifth grade SDC teacher at an intermediate school in Firebaugh. I teach ELA and math, as well as history and science. I also work with students that have behavioral needs, so I am teaching them behavioral management as well. And overall, I'm a case manager for 9 students in the SDC setting. Um, as far as the way that I teach, I co-teach with aides in small group settings. I have 3 different tiered or leveled groups within my classroom for ELA and math. I run one of the 3 groups, and I have 2 aides that assist me with the other 2 groups. That way I can keep my groups small, and it helps benefit the students to the best of our ability. I also do direct instruction with my whole class. So when I'm doing history and science, most of the time those are going to be full class lessons that are scaffolded based upon what my students need. And the last type of teaching that I use is the deployment method. So my students go ahead and, because they are gen ed students first, they go ahead and deploy to different gen ed classrooms depending on their grade level. And I go ahead and myself or an aide will assist my students in those classrooms as needed. So I will be co-teaching with gen ed teachers when my students are deployed, and they are mainly deployed for history and science times. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and go through my portfolio now. On this first page, this is the All About Me tab. And I just went ahead and included a narrative about how my journey as an educator started. So I began as a substitute teacher in Firebaugh, Mendota. I taught 1 year of science at Firebaugh Middle School, and now I'm in my 2nd year of teaching 3rd through 5th grade SDC, also in Firebaugh. I earned my educational specialist preliminary credential in May through Fresno State, and I'm currently in the master's program. I went ahead and added artifacts here that are pictures of a few certificates. This was a legal sped training that FCSS put on that I recently attended in October. This was the Fresno State Character Conference that I attended last spring. And this is another training that I was sent to by my district's Department of Special Education to help with behavior management in my classroom. Below that, I also have a observation from my induction coach because have my preliminary credential. I'm trying to earn my clear. So this was just an observation that she completed based upon or focusing on my positive reinforcement and how that encourages students to be productive within my classroom, and also how I make the classroom very inviting, things like that. Below those artifacts, I wanted to tie in a little bit of a more personal touch into my All About Me tab as well. So I love to do crafty things. I crochet, I quilt, things like that. Those are items that take a long time to do. They need a lot of patience, a lot of focus. And I just wanted to let whoever was looking at this portfolio, whether it be my current administrator or a future employer, that they know that I have those characteristics within all levels of my life, so both personal and professional. So I just wanted to go ahead and share that, and that's why I put this collage artifact in there as well. Let me go ahead and go to tab number 2, which is my resume. I went ahead and worked with Jody to formulate this resume, and she was extremely helpful. So overall, I just wanted to focus on what my professional goal was, which is to create customized learning environments so that my students are striving. Overall, as an educator, I don't think of, oh, 3rd grade's going to 4th, 4th grade's going to 5th, 5th grade's going to 6th. I think of my students as these are going to be community members. In their adult life, well, they are community members, but in their adult lives, we want them to contribute to society in a positive way. So I wanted to make sure that whoever might be looking at my resume knows that I'm not just thinking about this year, I'm thinking about their future and what I can do to contribute to that. And it has the different details of my education and my teaching experience and different activities that I'm a part of, such as serving on the school site council and the safety committee at my current school site. The third tab that I have for my web page is the CSTP standards. And we went ahead and covered 3 standards within this course. So I went ahead and placed my narratives for CSTP 1 by answering the questions, how do you get to know the parents of your students, and how do you connect subject matter to meaningful real life contexts? In these answers, for getting to know my parents, I use the Remind app, which allows open communication, which is great. And I also work with parents of students with autism through the Shines socials that we put together, which is a program specifically designed to help build social skills for students with autism. And then how do I make things more meaningful to life? I just take the content that is being taught through state standards and I try to connect it with the world around them. So for example, out in Firebaugh, ag is a big thing. So I wanted to make sure that my students, when we're talking about how things are grown and how things are made, that they know that agriculture is all around them. So I tied in the My Job Depends on Ag information into our different lessons, teaching about the life cycle of plants and other 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade standards. For evidence for this CSTP, I have an example of me communicating with parents through a Remind. This is what I would send home at the beginning of the year in both English and Spanish, so that the parents know how they can communicate with me and how I will be communicating with them throughout the year. For the second CSTP, I chose to respond to a prompt about how did you teach students to take responsibility for their own behaviors. And this is something that I'm really big on because, again, I'm not thinking about students in the context of just this year, but progressively making them better contributors to society. And that being said, we have to make sure that their behaviors are maintained in an appropriate way. So we go ahead and I made a Hawk's behavior chart. So every day of the week, they can earn tallies as a negative consequence, or at the very bottom of this chart, every day they can earn a letter for our mascot, which is a hawk. So it's HAWKS for every letter that they earn throughout the week because they're showing their what we call hawk pride, meaning good behaviors. Then they earn 5 goldfish for each of those letters, and at the end of the week on Friday we give them their reward, so up to 25 goldfish, which they get really excited about. And then my last CSTP was a flip grid. I won't play the video for you just because that'll take too long, but I went ahead and addressed CSTP 3.5 and discussing about adapting different resources. So within that, I wanted to just share that we use a lot of technology within our class because my district's really big on using technology and we have one-on-one Chromebooks. So I'm able to scaffold and tier the information that we're teaching based upon those online resources that I have through programs such as Discovery Education and Studies Weekly as well, which is a history curriculum. At the next tab are lesson plans. So I had Miss Dockery join me for an ELA lesson plan. I use the RERA strategy in my classroom, and she was able to observe us doing a RERA lesson using the Little Mouse, the Red Right Strawberry, and the Big Hungry Bear. And we filled in a graphic organizer focusing on what is the setting, what are the characters, and what's the beginning, middle, and end of a story. So this is just overall my lesson plan for that. My reflection just included that I felt that the students were engaged and then they were able to understand the questions being asked throughout filling in the graphic organizer. I'm also always looking for new strategies to keep all students engaged and keep my group activities at a level that each student can benefit from. But overall, I thought the objective for the lesson was met. when I recorded my lesson, I chose to do a math lesson to mix it up and make it a little bit different for my students. And so this lesson was based on data interpretation, which is something that we've really seen a lot on through like the Brigance assessment, but also through the CAW, which is the California Alternative Assessment. So we were working with 2-inch by 2-inch flashcards of cows, pigs, horses, and frogs, and they were interpreting these images into numerical data and explaining what that data meant. Of course, at different levels based upon how my students were grouped together. So again, the strengths of this lesson were that there were a lot of positive interactions between peers, lots of verbalizations, lots of correct connections being made with the data, which was awesome to see, and lots of mathematical vocabulary being used. Again, just working on keeping them engaged. They can get very distracted. So anytime that I can go ahead and find new ways to keep them focused would be helpful. But overall, the objective was met for the lesson, which was very positive for me. The last tab that we have is our professional learning tab, and it has different items in it. These are my IRIS modules. I went ahead, this was talking about our evidence-based practices, and then this was talking about how we use those evidence-based practices. So this was the module 1 and the module 2 that we completed. Now my individualized learning plan, I went ahead and completed this based upon this goal. So my goal was that by December 2019, when my current students are given a pre and post assessment, including 10 content specific math problems that aligns to their specific IEP goals, they will show improvement of understanding of the math concepts by increasing their performance scores by a minimum of 20%. So that's an increase of at least 2 more problems. And that was for 6 out of my 9 students. And so this goal, even though we are still in November, this goal was met. I have done my pre and post assessments for progress monitoring and other things. And so I actually had 7 of my 9 students grow by 20%. And 1 of my students grew by 30%. So that was awesome. I only have 1 student that I'm still working with to be able to meet their goal that I had set in this learning plan. And then along with the learning plan, for me to be able to grow as an educator, we did a couple professional learning activities. My first learning activity was to do 3 separate IRIS modules, but all talking about mathematics instruction. So I completed a differentiation of instruction, high quality mathematics instruction, and the MTSS/RTI process of mathematics. And that was about 7 hours of IRIS modules. And through that, I learned a lot about each of the pieces of instruction that go into being a educator that makes an impact on students. So I was focusing more on UDL. You give them all these ways to show what their knowledge is. However, I was not quite going about mathematics instruction in a way that benefited all my students because I was missing some of the pieces. So by going through all these IRIS modules and seeing actual videos of educators teaching with the EBPs in their classroom was very, very worthwhile. And I learned a lot, which is part of the reason why I think I did meet the goal that I put in my ILP. And then my second learning activity was going ahead and attending an FCSS training that my induction program put on. And through that, I was able to see how they use technology with both ELA and math, and gave me a lot of different ideas that I have since implemented in my classroom to reinforce engagement, as well as give students different opportunities to learn math the way that they need to. So that was also very beneficial for me to go ahead and attend. And here is where I will go ahead and put this video when it's finished. The last thing is, before the end of the year, I think I just really want to find some trainings that focus on student engagement and how to keep students focused and different types of practices that I could bring into my classroom so that my students are benefiting from what I am teaching them. So thank you.